The Florida Panthers sloppy in their win against the Penguins on Friday. The Team USA World Juniors team wins gold, and the Panthers and the NHL announced their quarter-century team.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Monday, January 6th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. You can also follow the show account on Blue Sky at LOFLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, Cats fans, I hope that today you woke up and you felt a big sense of gratitude for the Florida Panthers as the team who is the most competent of all the four professional South Florida sports teams, five if you want to include the MLS and Inter Miami and everything. But how lucky are we to have this team, and that night in and night out, even though that it may not be the best for the Panthers sometimes on certain nights, that that this team, once it gets to postseason in mid-April, that they'll give the fan base a little bit to cheer for and a little bit of hope year in and year out. And these last 5 years, not something to take for granted, as the things with the football team are not so great, with the poor ending, players wanting out, and then running it back once again with the same brass in the front office and at head coach, and just goes back to 2022 for the Florida Panthers. You think about the end, swept in the second round. You think this team achieved so much, winning one round in the last 26 years, and then giving up multiple first round picks then. And then Bill Zito says this isn't good enough. Then a coaching change and a big trade later, the Panthers 2 straight trips to the Stanley Cup final, winning one of them, and then a big chance once again for them to do it again. And to think that at the time, I'm glad that I went on the record, right, even before the playoffs started in 2022, that the Panthers should not remove the interim tag off of Andrew Burnett, and the fact that the Panthers shouldn't strap themselves and give themselves an opportunity to zoom out for them. And it just goes to show that once again that when you bring minds outside of the organization who don't have as much of an emotional connection from moves prior, that there are more rational decisions that could be made based on what you had then, what you have now, and just changing everything. It's like, we did it this way for so many years. We're going to go ahead and do things a lot different here. And once again, that big trade for Patrick Hornquist at the time, even though he wasn't on the Stanley Cup winning team, he didn't even play in the final the first go round when they faced the Vegas Golden Knights due to his head injuries for them. But still, the tone setter for the change in Florida Panthers hockey then. And that change and the standard for the Panthers even continues even into this homestand that the Florida Panthers just finished with, going 2-3-0. And for the Panthers, it's just right now it's not good enough for what they're trying to do here. I know that they went through their fair share of injuries. Mikkola left the Tampa Bay game early, didn't play in the last part of the homestand. The Panthers' net power play percentage is minus 7.1, giving up two shorthanded goals. One of them being in when the Panthers pulled the empty net going 6-on-4. I know that although that counts towards the stats there, you're for the most part, the Panthers just ice cold there on that part of the man advantage. The sticks were out of control on Friday night. 12 total PIM for the Panthers with how reckless they were with just stick infractions only there. Two double minors, a rarity that we see for Sam Reinhart, which he only had 4 penalty minutes before that, and he doubled that in one game for him. And then the Panthers just going to the box again with AJ Greer, and then later on into the game, right before the Pittsburgh Penguins tied it, Sam Bennett on an inexcusable penalty that on Drew O'Connor, which he got fined $5K for. So the Panthers, we're seeing the frustrations hit for them, with Sam Bennett having a goose egg in the last 10 plus games. Carver Hagee, although he created that shot opportunity for Matthew Tkachuk, who he spent a good amount of time in the penalty box after it was justified and valid for him to go after Sidney Crosby after he shot the puck after the whistle had blown for a penalty that the Pittsburgh Penguins committed, and then having some words for the linesman, and then getting that 10-minute misconduct. And what do you know? Well rested shortly after he comes out of the penalty box after that, the 12 minutes in, and then gets that goal on the power play for the Panthers to get them to a lead at the time. But just the fact that he can come in and then just bring a spark of energy is just incredible once again for what he can do. But once again, for a team who is still in great position, which now they're 4 points out of first place in the Atlantic Division, it may be another win for the Panthers, but it doesn't help their tie-breaking scenarios getting that win in a shootout. Although Spencer Knight gave up 2 goals, both on the penalty kill for the Panthers, he came through when the Panthers needed him most in that shootout against Sidney Crosby and Rickard Rakell. Spoke about watching him growing up and then getting to stop him in a shootout in a big pressure situation, giving the Panthers those 2 points in them. And Anton Lundell, I'm once again, I am very pleased by his performance for him, getting that opportunity with once again putting pressure in the offensive zone, and then even another shorthanded chance for the Panthers there on Friday night against the Penguins, getting their sticks and lanes, and then him and Eetu Luostarinen going up the ice for shorthanded opportunities. And Nick Fairbanks and I did recently go on the Cats and Rats podcast. That podcast isn't out yet, but when it gets released, we discuss more about digging deeper into Lundell's progression and along with trade targets. I mean, Lundell is averaging more time on ice than Sam Bennett. Also helps that he is playing more penalty kill time. So it really goes to show once again the versatility that Anton Lundell brings to the table for this Panthers team, and just brings into questions once again on the great start from Sam Bennett. Although the Panthers do gain the zone pretty well for Sam Bennett, what they do in transition to stop the opposition in putting pressure and not a lot making it easier on your blue line, which is already thin in itself. That is something that is missing from the Panthers, from their forwards at least, and doesn't help that Aaron Ekblad left the game in the last 6 minutes of it, didn't play the final parts of that game, and the blue line's a little thinner now for the Panthers. So this is a little bit of a period for the Panthers where they really got to dig deep and really got to try to work with what they have, because the D pairs are a little bit all over the place right now for the Panthers, which we'll get more into segment number 3 when we preview this game. So just a lot of poor play for the Panthers, even though they weathered the storm in this homestand. But just goes to show how once again the Panthers getting shut out twice here, power play struggling, and they're not killing penalties at a great rate. Spencer Knight did bounce back well, but even in the win against the New York Rangers, you're pinned in your own end, putting a lot of pressure on Sergei Bobrovsky, and also the same thing in the Carolina game where there's so much that Sergei Bobrovsky could do, but the Panthers are having a hard time getting out of their zone and even getting in on their forecheck. The first pass out from the opposition, they're nailing it for the Panthers, and they're unable to get to what they're best at with creating off script plays for when they do get on the forecheck. And that's really what the opposition has done so well, which once again, 82 games of this, it's hard to consistently put that together. And sometimes there will be those nights where the opposition does figure out the Panthers here. So, but hey, thankfully it's a marathon, not a sprint for this team. So you'll see the performances once again for this Panthers team that though you'll go back and see same old Panthers for them and just uh going back to that, and you just never know which night is going to come out of it for them. But in segment number 2, we are going to discuss more about the Panthers quarter century team that had been released on Friday, right before puck drop between the Florida Panthers and the Pittsburgh Penguins. We are going to give our thoughts and more coming up next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And from big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. And just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Segment number 2 here on this Monday, January 6th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And big congrats to Team USA on consecutive gold medals at the World Juniors, getting revenge on Finland after losing to them in group play in overtime. And got to talk about David Carl, coach at the University of Denver, Jack Devine's coach, along with Z Bouillon, who #1 defenseman for Team USA. And got to wonder if he'll be part of the next head coaching cycle in the NHL. He doesn't have to leave U Denver, but he has the leverage here for, if you want it, the way he's able to develop young players, and for a team that might be wanting to take that next step. I know Todd McClellan is the head coach of the Detroit Red Wings, but if they went to an interim basis for someone else, that would have maybe been a target for David Carl to possibly go to for him. So if the Chicago Blackhawks decide to keep Anders Sorensen after this season, who coached David Pastrnak and Willem Nylander out in Sweden, maybe David Carl will be a candidate over there in Chicago. So I just think of more of teams that are trying to take that next step, and along with young players for them. Maybe Columbus decides to keep Dean Evison, even though they're having an outstanding season for everything they've gone through. So just really hard to put a finger on which team he would probably go to, depending on where they feel their trajectory is for each individual team's build. But he has the cards. He holds them, and he says, okay, I have something great here at U Denver. You're gonna have to overwhelm me with an offer, because based on how much he's won over the last few years, with 2 World Juniors, national championship in college, just outstanding. But also Freebird. What a song for the Americans to use for their goal song. And then the game-winning goal, just the celebration of them in the corner after winning on the breakaway, and that song playing. Also, the one prospect that the Panthers had in this tournament, Linus Eriksson, part of Team Sweden, didn't even medal in this one after dominating group play. Linus Eriksson had a turnover that led to a go-ahead goal in the bronze medal game for the Swedes. And although the Canadians didn't medal neither, nobody has it worse than the Swedes. 1 gold medal in 44 years for the Swedes at this tournament. So just heartbreaking to see continuing, just unable to consistently put gold in for their resume for as a junior hockey organization for them. But also, once again, great story for Team USA on having Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau jerseys in the locker room playing for them, which Ryan Leonard of the Washington Capitals, which is going to be another great prospect coming up for them. They're playing well, and they have someone coming later for them who they recently drafted for them. He's going to be a big part of them. And also Trey Augustine, we spoke about him, goaltender of the future for the Detroit Red Wings. They were teammates with Johnny Gaudreau during the World Championships last year. So once again, more great stories coming out of Team USA, and just once again them embracing the lives of Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau. It feels like they were with them this whole time in spirit for them. But the chance at the end of Team USA Till I Die just sends shivers down my spine whenever I hear it. But also next year's World Juniors, a chance for USA to three-peat on home soil, which next year's World Juniors will be held in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then next year will possibly be in Alberta in 2027. Nothing announced on that front, but a good chance that 2027 could be played in Alberta back on Canadian soil. But the NHL and the Florida Panthers did announce their quarter century teams for 2000 to 2025. So the second team goes as this: Pavel Bure, Olli Jokinen, Sam Reinhart, and the defense pair is Jay Bouwmeester and Robert Svela. And then the goaltender for the second team is Sergei Bobrovsky. First team is Jonathan Huberdeau, Alexander Barkov, Matthew Tkachuk. Top pair for the quarter century is Aaron Ekblad and Gustav Forsling. And then the goaltender, the first team goaltender for the Florida Panthers is Roberto Luongo. And if you watched the pregame show for the Florida Panthers against the Pittsburgh Penguins, you saw that Roberto Luongo joined Jessica Blaylock and Ed Jovanovski on the desk on Script Sports to announce the teams. You know well that Roberto Luongo is going to be part of some type of announcement there for the quarter century teams. And here's the thing. For some of the guys that made it, Olli Jokinen, part of that big trade along with Roberto Luongo. So great to see that both of them as maybe one of the two best trades in the history of the Florida Panthers. You get a franchise goaltender and a future captain at the time for the Panthers, and then Olli Jokinen, 7 seasons with the Florida Panthers, 78 games or more. So durability has been something that has really helped Olli Jokinen when really he played really into dark days of the Florida Panthers there. Robert Svela is a strange one for me because although he was part of coming into the Florida Panthers, never made his debut for the Calgary Flames, played in 4 games for the Panthers in 1995 for them, and then a big part of the Panthers and just identity, playing on both sides of the ice for them. A guy who's really tough to play against, but most of his great play came in the 90s for the Panthers there. So I was a little confused there when I saw Robert Svela's name there for the Panthers. But when I think of 2000 to 2025, I just think of more of the guys who have been there for maybe drafted by the team and also have been through so many ups and downs, and also guys who have helped and came along the way for the Panthers to even help younger guys. I mean, Ekblad is an obvious one for the first team, drafted number 1 overall, ended up being a Stanley Cup champion. Before the injuries, we saw him as a possible Norris candidate for the Panthers. Gustav Forsling's story is awesome with being a waiver claim and being on the plus side of plus 100 over a 2-season span for the Cats there. And some guys for the Panthers that I would probably have considered for the Panthers is Dmitry Kulikov. Although the stats aren't there, the hits category is for Kulikov. Drafted, although he was on the ice for certain moments that led to some heartbreak for the Panthers. The Adam Henrique goal, the John Tavares goal for them. He was part of a big clear for the Florida Panthers that led to the game-winning goal, and also the story of him coming back to the team he was drafted to, and then winning a Stanley Cup, and then earning a contract for him. So that's an honorable mention for Kulikov, even though he didn't make the quarter century teams. Brian Campbell's another one that I may be a little bit surprised as well. Played every single game in his 4 seasons, helped Ekblad get to that next step, and finished even in the top 10 in Norris voting in his first year for the Florida Panthers, and also was won the Lady Byng there for them. Pavel Bure, a little bit of a surprise because one of the 50-goal seasons for him came right as the millennium turn. So hey, but Panthers hadn't had a 40-goal scorer, even a guy to hit 40 until recently, a few years ago with Carter Verhaeghe, Matthew Tkachuk for them. So the fact that the Panthers went 20 years of that 25 without even someone even getting 40, I can get why Pavel Bure is one that sticks out. And then Sam Reinhart being on that second team, 59 goals, 57, excuse me, and getting that game winner in Game 7 of the final, earning that contract. Matthew Tkachuk, the identity changer for the Panthers. Jonathan Huberdeau, a top 3 pick, who at the time right before he was traded, he was he was the franchise leader in points for the Panthers right before Barkov took over that at just a few months after he was traded. So Huberdeau is definitely deserving, even though the ending for the Panthers there wasn't the best. Also, the relationship between the Panthers and Olli Jokinen right now isn't the best as far as we know, but hopefully that gets rekindled. Hey, they rekindled things with Stephen Weiss after he left the Florida Panthers, which was not his choice for him, but they've found a way to better their relationships. And we haven't heard from Bouwmeester in a while, Stanley Cup champion for him, but was definitely part of the dark ages one time for the Panthers, just playing in all situations. Your power play quarterback when they during that time when they were trading the first overall pick and in consecutive years at the draft, even in one of those drafts, trying to draft Alex Ovechkin later on a year before he was eligible to be drafted there. So that is your Panthers quarter century teams, and some of them maybe a little bit of a question mark, especially on the blue line. But also for the Panthers, there's some obvious ones for them. So that is their quarter century teams, and a lot of history made for the Panthers, even early in the century, and even though that middle was really rough, they also had a great ending there, obviously winning the Stanley Cup there and everything for them. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we are going to preview tonight's game between the Florida Panthers and the Colorado Avalanche from Mile High, as the Panthers, they finished the homestand 2-3-0, but they've been playing better on the road, and hopefully that comes with a win on Monday. We're going to preview that and more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I've had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was paying for, and Rocket Money has made it easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscription, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together all in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Third and final segment here on this Monday, January 6th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Monday. So the Panthers, quick 2-game road trip for them, visiting the Colorado Avalanche and then the Utah Hockey Club there. It'll be the first nationally televised game on TNT from Utah, so that'll be the first trip that TNT will be making to Utah. But the Panthers have to take care of business first in Colorado, a place that they have played well in the last few years. Since 2018, the Panthers have won 4 out of their last 5 matchups in Denver. But their recent matchup at home for the Panthers, a 7-4 loss for them, and just the blue line issues for that one for the Panthers was just out of control, and the goaltending that was at the time where the Panthers had lost 6 of 7. And who did they face against shortly after? The Toronto Maple Leafs and the Carolina Hurricanes twice. Two teams that they have seen in the postseason. So just you go a little bit Jekyll and Hyde for the Panthers here in a regular season after winning the cup. But since November 23rd, that match, which was when that last matchup happened between the Florida Panthers and the Colorado Avalanche, the Avs are 2-6-1. And this is a team that started 0-4-0. And questions still existed at the time with Landeskog. What were they going to do with Valeri Nichushkin, whose suspension is over, and he's right now day to day for the Colorado Avalanche. So that's a big part of their lineup that could be missing. Who can park out in front, especially on the power play, to get those deflections for the Colorado Avalanche there. So a lot is missing from the lineup. Landeskog still hasn't played in 2.5 years, so he's skated from time to time, but it hasn't been consecutive days of practice for them. And also, their goaltending situation has changed so much. We saw Alexander Georgiev between the pipes for the Colorado Avalanche the last time these two faced, and since then he's been traded for the Avs. And it all started a week after with the Avs trading for backup goaltender Scott Wedgwood for Justus Ennunen to the Nashville Predators, and then shortly after, on December 9th, a few days after the Panthers faced the San Jose Sharks, which Mackenzie Blackwood was outstanding in that performance, a 50-plus save in a losing effort for the San Jose Sharks against the Panthers, which the Panthers stole the San Jose Sharks' lunch money and more in that one, but just had a hard time getting past Mackenzie Blackwood before they finally broke through. It was a tightly contested game, although the possession numbers for the Panthers you were just waiting for the levee to break there and just tiring out Mackenzie Blackwood. But he gets traded for Alexander Georgiev. Georgiev goes the other way to San Jose. But they're a little thin now in that department due to an injury just that happened a few nights ago, which there was a percentage of the fan base complaining about. Was it goalie interference? Was it not, with Matthew Tkachuk holding them down there for just Barry Kotkaniemi on Thursday night against the Carolina Hurricanes? But if you had any reason to if there was one team who had a reason to complain about an injury or any type of collision, it was the Colorado Avalanche on Thursday night against the Buffalo Sabres, where the Sabres collide into Scott Wedgwood. He's down. Zach Benson goes on a wraparound when I believe it looked like an ankle from the replay, and then the Buffalo Sabres score instead of the referee blowing the play dead. And then Benson celebrates while the Colorado Avalanche take exception to it, which I understand they should. Someone's down and you're celebrating while someone is clearly hurt, but also not blowing that dead, which goalies should be the exception for them in their ability to, or inability in that case, to defend their crease for them. Which, if there's a skater who's a little shaken up, but a team that is already going up the ice, you wait a little bit until there's at least a change for them. But the fact that Wedgwood didn't even know where the puck was because he's obviously down, that is that I'm sure if you're a goaltender, that is one to definitely be upset about. And Jared Bednar had some comments after the game saying, "I don't give a bleep." About that. He's down. That play should have been blown dead. But also for the goaltending situation for the Avs, it was starting to get a little hostile and a little toxic, because even though the Colorado Avalanche were scoring goals, McKinnon, I believe it was a game in Madison Square Garden or New York, I forget which games it was for them, but throwing Georgiev under the bus, saying no matter what they did, the pucks were ending up in the back of their nets. And with Mackenzie Blackwood in that game against the Panthers when he was a member of the Sharks, it once again goes to show, one, how many eyes are on the Panthers being Stanley Cup champions that even on a Saturday, you're a lot of GMs and even hockey fans are tuning into their games. But also Mackenzie Blackwood has shown tremendous upside, even going back to his days in New Jersey. Health has been an issue for him. A little bit of off the ice stuff for him has also been an issue on whether he's able to play or not for the Devils at the time. And the Devils are better off with their goaltending situation right now, with Jacob Markstrom being part of the mix, and then Mackenzie Blackwood now has changed zip codes recently, but maybe has now found a home he has found a home in Colorado, because they even extended him. They extended him with less than 10 games played with the Avalanche, which is a little odd for Chris McFarland to do there for them. So that's another thing for a guy who has a lot of upside. The ceiling for Mackenzie Blackwood a lot higher than Georgiev. When they traded for Georgiev, he was already a backup in New York, played well in a limited role, but just goes to show that starters minutes is not something you want to put for Georgiev. And Mackenzie Blackwood has dealt with a lot of starts in his career, and that's what the Avalanche are looking for, as maybe that final piece for them to get to the Stanley Cup final, get back there, which I would love a Panthers Avalanche Stanley Cup final, because there's so much connection between these two teams. McKinnon and Barkov, they'll forever be linked. Even Jonathan Drouin, who's on the same team with his buddy Nathan McKinnon, they'll forever be linked there. Their first shore of awards, both winning a Stanley Cup. So that is once again, I'm sure, a Stanley Cup final that the NHL would want with these two. But for the Panther side of things, Nico Mikkola back in practice, paired with Uvis Balinskis. And if there was optimism of Aaron Ekblad playing, we wouldn't see the pairs like they were in practice yesterday, which Gustav Forsling was paired with Dmitry Kulikov, Mikkola paired with Balinskis, and then Nate Schmidt with Adam Boqvist. And the Panthers, just this morning, we are recording this right now, it's 12:05 p.m. on a Monday. The Panthers have called up Tobias Bjornfot from Charlotte, which he was defenseman of the month for the Charlotte Checkers, for getting 2 goals and 5 assists in 12 games for them. But just once again goes to show this fan base likes to pick on Aaron Ekblad quite a bit, but seeing how the deep pairs look now with him out, it's like you kind of don't know what you have until it's gone. We don't know the extent of how long Aaron Ekblad's injury is. Didn't practice yesterday, but just goes to show how thin this blue line it really is when he's out. And this is one of those games where you have to maybe shield your eyes and hold on to your butts a little bit, and pray that you don't get into a track meet with these guys, because although crazy enough, the Colorado Avalanche only scored 1 goal in their recent matchup against the Montreal Canadiens, and they lost in a shootout, which Montreal has been an outstanding story this year. Wins or losses, for in my opinion, for Montreal shouldn't be the goal. It should just be about how other players take that next step for them. And Montreal is adding on with wins. So it's just, once again, I think Montreal is on taking that next step for them. But they're coming to play, and even the contending teams, we think the Florida Panthers are one of them. The Colorado Avalanche are another one that they've that has struggled against them. So for the Panthers here, once again, you're short some guys on the blue line. It once again puts a little bit more emphasis for Bill Zito to try to make something happen for adding on to the blue line and beefing it up, because you never know what kind of injury could happen in the postseason where you'll need where a guy could play up in a lineup for a certain period of time, but over a 2-month long marathon of the postseason, hopefully assuming that the Panthers get there, obviously, that you're gonna need that during the war of attrition for that each team goes through. And once again, seeing this, and even at the time when the Panthers lost to Colorado Avalanche, the first matchup this season, I even said it. I even posted an episode shortly after. This blue line is not a championship blue line as currently constructed. So there still needs to be the working of the phones for Bill Zito on what he can get. So still for this Panthers team, gotta wonder how they're gonna go into this matchup with being so thin, and hopefully the forwards can better support that with pressure and forechecking and just knowing when to pinch for that, because if you make one mistake, there could be a 2-on-0 or a 2-on-1 that could end up in the back of the net for the Panthers. So this is the one where you're maybe a little nervous for this for the way the blue line is currently put together right now with the injuries. But that's going to do it for this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Tomorrow's edition of the show, we will be recapping tonight's game between the Florida Panthers and the Colorado Avalanche in the first of two on this very quick road trip in the Mountain Time Zone. So make sure to come back tomorrow as we will recap it then. But in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.